So we've got about 34 now, Mustafa. We might make a start in a minute.
Are we ready, Vic? Are you ready?
I'm ready. Whenever you're ready.
Fantastic. Yep, fantastic. Well, hi everyone. Welcome to today's Business Leadership Speaker Series, the inaugural Business Leadership Speaker Series, where I'm delighted to be joined by Vik Kapoor, PMO Manager of Ericsson. I would also like to especially welcome all of our students, academics and staff who are joining us online today from Torrens University, Australia. My name is Mustafa Kadir and I'm the industry consultant here at Torrens University, Australia, where I look after the business faculty and industry engagement. Before I start, I want to do a bit of housekeeping. Please make sure your video and mic are turned off, with the exception of Vic. And we want to make sure only Vic's video is turned on. Fantastic. Now, an organisation's project management office, or PMO, are often unable to realise their full potential because they fail to anticipate and proactively plan for common problems that creep up along the way. It can be argued that its success depends on how happy the stakeholders are in the process. And this means that PMOs have to actively involve all stakeholders and manage their expectations at an early stage. And we can certainly argue that a successful PMO is often driven by strong and dedicated leadership, including executive backing and authority to take action. I'm delighted to be joined by a special guest and a friend today. With us, we have Vik Kapoor, PMO Manager with Ericsson Australia, New Zealand and Asia. It's a very wide portfolio you've got there, Vik. Vik has over 20 years of experience in various sectors such as IT, telecommunications and consulting. Vik has also taken roles as research and development and systems engineer, solutions architect, solutions manager, program manager, and program director in several high-level projects spread across international locations, and with multiple vendors as well. And these have been predominantly, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Vik, across Australia, Singapore, and Japan. Vik has also been involved with PMI Project Management Institute since 2012, and is currently serving as the president of the Melbourne chapter. Without further ado, I'd like to now hand over to Vik to talk a little bit about himself, more about himself and the challenges of running a PMO and driving project success. As we're all, I'm sure, looking forward to sort of get your insights, Vik. But more importantly, I've also asked Vik to talk a little bit about job opportunities in project management, and to give practical advice to students that have joined us today on how to increase their chance of landing a job in this field. So without further ado, over to you, Vik.
Thank you for the warm welcome and the introduction, Mustafa. Good evening, good afternoon, everyone. So agenda for today, I'd like to introduce about what is Project Management Office, objective of a PMO, then I'll go through a bit some types of PMO that are used across industries. Then I'll share my challenges with running a PMO. So that's where I will share my experience since I took this role, and how we driving the success in the organization. There will be some talk about the PMI as well, so I'll keep it at the end, and some question answer session towards the end. First of all, about me. So Mustafa, sorry, I forgot to update my profile, but including Ericsson, 15 years in Ericsson, about 23 years of work experience. I'm currently taking a role as a PMO manager in Ericsson Australia, which is an NJA role. It includes Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji. Previously, as you can see, my journey, Mustafa mentioned, I started my career as a systems engineer, R&D engineer, move up to solution architect, then solution manager, project manager, program manager, and my last position was program director role, mainly handling projects and program with Telstra NBN. And now I'm currently doing this role as a PMO manager. So this is something I took last year in November. I'm also serving as a president in volunteering capacity with PMI Melbourne chapter. So this allows me to stay in touch with the global standards and the practices across, and also being part of the leadership. It's give me great pleasure of contributing to the profession and also to the bigger community of project management. Work experience. So I started my journey from Singapore Telecom. So after graduation, that was my first job in 1997. I also did my R&D research in Center for Wireless Communications and NTT Docomo in Japan. So I stayed and worked in Japan for almost 7 years. I joined Ericsson Japan first, and then I moved back to Melbourne. And Ericsson, a couple of companies as well. And my education, I've done both my Bachelor of Engineering in Electrical and Computer and Master of Engineering in Telecommunication, and they both from Queensland University of Technology, Brisbane. So I grew up in Brisbane and I'm now living in Melbourne since 2011. So that's a bit of introduction about myself. The objective for today, what I wanted to set that everybody, so that everybody understand what we're trying to achieve today. So first of all, I'll share what is actually PMO means and how it can add the value to project deliveries. Some key challenges we may face when we're running a PMO, and also what learning we need to keep in mind. Hopefully that can help you in future when you take part in the PMO or become a PMO manager or head of PMO. Let me just ask the question first. If you can, anybody guess when was the first PMO formed? So I encourage whenever we go through to make it a bit more interactive virtually, you are most welcome to type your comments in the chat. I may not be able to see the chat. I don't have a second screen here at the moment, but I'm sure Mustafa should be able to facilitate through. So asking when officially was formed, we may not be able to find exact date, but going back in history, around 1930, US Air Corps actually developed a project office function to monitor aircraft development, and probably this is the first time officially we could say PMO was formed. Let's go through some of the facts here. So I put these numbers here. It may not make sense right now. 85, 58, 50%, and 97 million. First of all, 85% of the firms
Vic, we've lost you. I think you've accidentally gone on mute.
Oh, there we go. It's better now?
Much better now.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what happened. Yep. So I'll repeat again. So 85% of firms have PMO. Around 58% of organizations fully understand the value of project management. So you can see by just not having the PMO, it doesn't mean that they understand project management. 50% of global project fail, and about 97 million out of every 1 billion of the cost that is spent on the project is waste. Every organization around that much is actually wasting out of 1 billion. Right. Let's look at on the lighter side. I hope not. Okay, so let me just get through what is a project management office and what's the definition. So project management office, it's an organization structure. The main function that it provides, the purpose of PMO is to standardize the project related governance process. Also facilitate the sharing of the resources so that you can assign the resources depending on the project and the competence level required for those projects, and depending on the priority and the benefit of a project or program where you need to apply those resources. And not only that, but also building their professional development and upskill. That also that's also be managed by PMO, and also provide methodologies, tools, and techniques. So these are the main purpose of having PMO. But the main function or the main reason is for that to handle the strategic management. And the project management office can range from providing support from project management to either managing directly or just providing the support only. And it could be for one project or could be two projects. So when we look at the focus area, so it's always revolve around four areas: process, tools, governance, and people. Process, we're talking about methodology in project delivery. So every project that they use or program, we have a standard methodology across so that we want to make sure that everybody go through the same process. And when we have the same process, obviously we need to have a standard tools and templates so that everybody uses the same and we talk the same language. Ericsson is a global company. We have over 140 countries present there. So we work across different countries. So obviously, if we don't have a standard process and tools, it's really very hard for us to talk to each other in the same language. Governance-wise, operation and financial governance. This is talking about both how we are tracking with our project progress and also financially how we are tracking and having this governance model and should be standard across all entire organization that they're running these projects. And people, looking after people means making sure that their professional development, their assessment, and also career progression, making sure that we understand where they want to work. Do they have sufficient skills? Do they have sufficient knowledge required, and how their career progression there to support them? So these are the main focus area. So I just mentioned there, people talking about their succession planning. Obviously, everybody wants to have ambition to work or learn in a different area, different field. So you want to make sure that those resources are looked after and you have a succession planning accordingly. Having a transparency is important, making sure that what we're doing, how we're doing it, and acknowledgement, recognition. Profitability, same thing. Our goal is also objective is to make sure that we contribute to organization delivery, standard delivery, so that the profitability is contributed. And excellence in delivery. So this can be achieved only when we have a standard governance process and tools. And efficiency, we're always looking for automation or process development or making sure that we find the efficiency in our day-to-day work. Okay. Now, if you look at the PMO functions, so we can categorize into five main functions that PMO to operates or handles. First of them, most important part, is the governance. Governance means strategic planning and performance, making sure that project and programs and following that governance, operational as well as the financial. A lot of people think governance is all about showing that everything is green light or showing them that everything is on track or trying to hide that project is not running with issues and all. That's not the main purpose. Purpose of governance is to show the correct image or the correct progress of project where it stands. And main function is to identify those risks earlier so that the stakeholders or the steering committee can make the right decision, right timing to help making sure the project delivers in time and in cost and as per the scope. So the main function of governance is not to check the reporting, it's just to identify the risk as early as possible and having those risks available so they can take proactive approach and help those projects. Process, so always allowing best practices, framework, process, and tools. So we don't really struggle with our day-to-day job, asking around what templates do we use, what is the standard for this one. So if you want to write a project charter, or you want to prepare a risk assessment metrics, or you want to have a scope statement or the completion report, we don't really need to struggle wasting time finding those. There is a place that people can always follow, and then they also have a best practices. So if they want to know how to fill those templates, the examples are. So that's where this having this process comes in very important. Competence-wise, professional development, talent management and training, etc. This all need to be managed by PMO, ensuring that the resources are then they have required knowledge to run their day-to-day projects, and not only that, it should be become business as usual. Means the professional development, it can't be just once training provided and then we forget about it. It has to continuously as a cycle, ensuring that people are fully across with the training and the skills they require to do their work. Resource management, project delivery, making sure that the right resources are assigned, and we have the resource pool, making sure that everybody are engaged with the project and they are actually adding values, not just forcefully assigned where they're not adding in value. Knowledge sharing. So PMO is institute where all the knowledge is stored there. So any time, people can always go to and understand what knowledge they need. Any lesson learned or past projects or tools and template is a repository there. So these are the 5 main functions that PMO provides to organization and help to deliver projects and programs and portfolios. When we talk about PMO types, so often we think, okay, if you want to establish a PMO in our organization, what I need to do. So there are 2 types mainly, influence and how it's positioned in organization. So I'll talk a bit more on the influence, which can be divided into 3 parts: supportive, controlling, and directive. While position in organization is depending on individual, department, and corporate. So let's have a look closely on influencing part. So as I said, there are three parts: supportive, controlling, and directive. So in supportive, it's just mainly providing the support with the tools, process, and templates, and giving them guidance as a consultancy, and helping them with the status reporting and configuration management. It does not manage or control the project or resources. It has got nothing to do with the resources. The resources are working completely differently from the line manager or resource management pool. It's very much hybrid, or the matrix organization is not projectized. So if you're familiar with the organization structure type, this could be as a matrix type organization. There's some background noise. If you can put on mute, that will help. Thank you. So the control or authority level with supported type of PMO is very low, because as you can see that they don't really manage and control the project or resources. While in the controlling, that's where the project resources are coordinated. So they have a pool of resources there. PM assignment, project management assignment is from this PMO type. They also develop methodology and practices and standards, also maintain the central repository, compliance, making sure assurance point of view, performance reporting. They still don't manage or control the project. They are just providing the resourcing point of view and PM assignment. Okay. And this one is a bit of moderate there. However, in a directive, directly managing and controlling project and having the resource pool available as well, and injecting professionalism in project management. It's ideally is applicable for if you have a very large or matrix or hierarchical organization. That's where the directive will apply. And you can also say the authority level is pretty much high there. So the organization that I work or represent for, we are mainly doing on the controlling part. And I will touch base a bit more on the resourcing, how it's managed. So it's somewhere between controlling and directive, means the resources are managed, but they are managed through the program directors or program managers there. Okay. So there are the 3 main types of PMO, and each organization they can decide, or it's depending on what type of organization is there and what strategy they have. If there's a need just for the supportee only, let's set up the PMO first for the supportee. But if it's required controlling, then we can think about controlling. So that's all depend upon what type of PMO will fit in organization. So this is taken from PMI source. So this is talking about how the position with the organization type of PMI. So individual, departmental, and corporate PMO. So as you can see, individual PMO, just if you want to set up a PMO only for a couple of projects, You can call it as individual, and they just purely look after only those two projects. But if you want to set up at departmental, that's where you can see in a company you have IT operation, finance, system supports, and then there's IT PMO only. So just purely looking after only the IT division, not everybody else, or it can also look into everything. That's where you have a corporate PMO, right? So that's give you at the organization level how it's managing. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about a bit of a failure part first, because it's important to understand first some of the stats, what happens in PMO and why they failed and what's the stats looks like. So 50% of the PMOs close within 3 years. Now, since 2008, the PMO implementation failure rate is over 50%. So it means every 2 projects, there's 1 project failing. 68% stakeholder perceive that PMO is to be very bureaucratic. Only 40% of project that something meet schedule, budget, and quality goals. So this is just talking a bit about PMO failure. Now let's understand why actually PMO fails. And these are the important points to take note, so that when we are running those PMO or being part of the PMO, we can really understand and see if we can avoid them. First of all, PMO was just created and working as a standalone, and there was no interface with the management. So obviously management, there was no authority or no support coming from management, and there was no link. We could never see who are the management side of it. It was made it overcomplicated. So as I mentioned, there are three different types of PMO. We just made it very complicated, not really understanding what's the need in the organization. Lack of resources, not just the number, but also the competence, making sure that we have a competent resources to run those type of projects. Misaligned with the strategy. So it didn't, when the PMO was formed, it didn't have anything to do with the strategy. Lack of authority obviously means there's no accountability from the top management. So that's also fails. Misunderstanding, misconception as well. A lot of people in the organization, when they hear about PMO, they think PMO is just purely the policing. They're just gonna come and waste our time. They're gonna check how we're doing. They're gonna audit it, and they're just gonna make noise. That's something misunderstanding and misconception happen when people relate with PMO, and that's where the PMO doesn't get much support and contribute to the failure. Okay, so organization, this need to be clearly understand what, as I mentioned, is required, and they need to tie up with the strategy and the objective. Without that, it's not really gonna make any value if you set up the PMO. Okay, so now I'm gonna take a few moments here. Mustafa, do you want me to continue, or do you want me to take a couple of questions here before we move on?
I'm loving this session, Vik. So continue talking.
Sure. Okay.
I'm enjoying it.
All right. Okay, so let me just start with my challenges and finding way forward. So this is something I faced when I started my role. So as I mentioned, that I have delivered lots of projects and programs, and bigger projects. Some of them were up to 6-7 billion, and multi-year program and projects there. So I come from a very diverse project management background. Different customers, different account, different complexity. So I consider myself, yep, I can do project management. However, PMO is a completely different role. So I had to start something ground level. That doesn't mean that it didn't give me any value or any advantage. Having a enormous project management experience did allow me to understand the basics of the PMO. However, I had to start from the ground level. When I say new role, new people, what it means that it was a new role, and the organization that I went there is a radio access network. So that something was a completely new group, and it's a different division there, different stakeholders there. Some of them, obviously, we meet each other every day, but didn't really know them well enough. And there was a huge team that I went there. So first of all, understanding my new role and also meeting with new people. So networking or relationship was challenging because if you know project management, we spend over 80 to 90% in our communication. And having this role coming and also the COVID-19 situation came. So that's where I found really challenging, not able to see people and not able to meet people, not able to tell who I am and show my values to them. So that was the biggest challenge for me, to completely managing everything virtually. Building on legacy. So they did had a PMO, obviously, but it may or may not have been very successful. So there were some pending things, some unfinished business that I was given the task that Vik, we started. This is something in a couple of years back, but it didn't work. You need to make it happen. So that's a challenge given to me. And regional role as well. So our Australia, New Zealand, and Fiji, it comes under Asia Pacific. So that's where, including India as well. So the centralized function or the regional office is somewhere sits in Malaysia or in Malaysia office or Singapore office. So they manage, make sure that at least the region is aligned with the PMO, the same function, same standard tools and process we follow. So obviously I need to understand that not only the local team, but also regional team. So it means I had to ensure that my networking, my relationship, I need to extend it and work with them, because a lot of things is driven globally or regional. So the challenging task was given to me on deployment of a new project management system. So this is a new project management system. What it means is it allows our day-to-day job every day, and this is completely new. This is something that I was talking about. It was tried in 2-3 years ago, but it didn't really work. So I was given a task or a challenge to make sure that we put this new system into our organization. What it means that people who are using Excel templates or some other tools, they need to completely use new tool. It means there's a migration there. And organization culture and human culture. So as we all know, any new change comes, first of all, people are always rejecting and saying, why it's going to give me additional work, or it's going to increase my work. And obviously understanding organization, how they take the new changes coming. So these are the some challenges that I face. And now how I actually overcome it. First of all, I continue to evolve and learn myself, being thankful to PMI organization, which allowed me to access to several people who I could look into and ask for advice. So some mentoring, people who have already done or delivered the PMO. So that allowed me to get the direct coaching from them. Keeping my core values, I know that what I'm good at it. First of all, finding myself that yes, these are my core values. My project management values, or my communication or leadership, or networking or relationship building. This is something I have to use it. Impact analysis. So first of all, I did the impact analysis and understood why this particular project management tool was not successful. So I had to go each group and get some insight, interview them, or just talk casual basis, giving them a phone call, and not having opportunity or the luxury to take them for a coffee. I had to make sure that, the only resource I had to make a phone call, video call, to talk to them and understand the background why actually it failed. So that given me a good understanding why this tool was failed. Building relationship to over the time. It happened, I look upon to my boss and I asked if he could introduce me or make me the part of all the team meetings that happens. And that really opened up, and people will start to show a bit more cooperation. And using previous experience means what I have done actually is most of my expertise in the migration type projects. So I have done most of the data migration related project for Telstra, and including NBN as well. And so that's where my skills or my strengths. So I know that why don't I take this new deployment system as a migration project? So I took completely that experience to migration project. So I'll show you an example how the approach I took. So every time we do the migration, first of all, we need to understand the business impact, how is going to impact the business, then making sure that when people receive that new system, how they're going to manage their day-to-day operation. Is it going to impact their work? It's pretty much like when you're moving house, when you want to migrate to a new house, and you want to make sure that when you turn on the light, you have a light, you have AC working, you open your tap and water's coming and gas is working fine, and your important thing is internet is working fine. Everything you want to make sure that is smoothly there. So that's where the approach we need to take when we are doing the impact analysis. So that gives you, okay, yes, and when the system comes, people do have enough knowledge to run day-to-day job. And why should they do it? Because forcing them with the compliance that it must do it is not really going to cut it out. First of all, you need to prove to them this is a benefit that is going to bring to them personally, and then it will bring the value. Of course, they will be contributing to the organization as well. So these are the things that I was working on. So these are some mandatory items which I worked on. First of all, focusing on benefit first, as I mentioned, how is going to help project managers, not just forcing them with the compliance, because you will not get away with anything if you just, of course, you need to tell in a very subtle way that this is a compliance, but benefit comes first. Making sure that the performance key measurements also is part of the group. So previously the same cookie cutter was, for example, was used, but it didn't really work. Each group, so we have 4 accounts: Telstra, NBN, Vodafone, and Optus, yep, and also New Zealand Spark. So each account, they have a different kind of challenges. So talking to each responsible program director, understanding what measurement will work for them. Out of 5, they could pick 3, and they picked 3. So that's where they had the flexibility. So that's where they were comfortable. Yep, that's what we can do, because previously they were not really happy because some of them were not really applicable. Okay? So we had some common ground with terms of the performance measurement, clear role and responsibility. So obviously making sure that giving them assurance that yes, this new tool is coming, you need to use it, but there's some supporting structure there. So I made sure that there's a team there of technical people who can support them, including myself. So I trained myself to understand the tool first. Without knowing the tool, you can't sell the product. So I had to make myself expert in that tool as well, so that I can at least understand. And I had a regional team support there, so that day to day, in case if they're stuck, they know who to contact and who to look for. So obviously they know, okay, if I get stuck, I know who to call. Audit and ensuring quality is paramount. So that's once again making sure that we don't give the message that this is just the policing. This is something related with our overall organization performance and the quality and standard. So that's where it's important to have this audit. And these audits are not done in a way it's like interrogation. It's mostly done. So I've done a couple of audits where it's just giving them heads up first. This is what is required. So give them some chance to do it, so that at least they understand what is required in terms of the audit. Reinforcing the evaluation survey. So that's customer evaluation, making sure that it's become part of the performance of each group or each team. That's where to understand that, yes, how we are perceived from customer eyes. Standardizing tools and templates. So Ericsson is pretty good with tools and templates. However, still, depending on each program to program level, there are some templates that are not really standard. So I took from each program and make sure that we have a standard template across every program is used same. So when they share the knowledge, it look and feel is the same. Okay, so these are the some changes became the mandatory items with the PMO function. So the example that I was talking about, how I deployed the project management system rollout. So first of all, the phase 1 training and refreshers. So I run several refresher sessions. I'm still running those sessions because people come and go. There's new people coming. There are some entry-level project managers that become project manager. the career progression, succession is ongoing. Some of them are technical and they want to become project managers. So this online training modules, they're all there, but just we need to put it somewhere so that everybody have easy access. Excuse me. So that's where I ran several sessions, making sure that everybody understand, have the training. There were some cleanup required. So obviously when we do the migration cleanup, we want to make sure there is a cutoff date. So by some certain cutoff date, everybody had to close certain projects manually, and then everything after that will switch into migration mode. It means they need to start using the tool. Obviously, there will be some overlap. They need to do the double work, but that's where it's important to set up a deadline so they can start working on the cleanup phase. This also assigned the local champion and SMEs. In what it means that obviously single point of failure shall not lie within the PMO. One person, it should be shared across the team. So sustainability point of view. So we assign from each program have SME or local champion so that in case they can be the first point of escalation or the troubleshooting if there's any help is needed. Just imagine if I go on leave and the show can't stop, show must go on. That's where it's important to have these local champions or SMEs built in. Pilot run. So obviously we don't want to make sure that we always want to make sure that we try first. So each program are allowed to have one project or program with their choice, and then we run completely, show them how the tool works from right from the scratch till the end, and then that they get the hands-on, they can get hands on the training environment and they can play around. So this allowed them the confidence that they can use the tool and they can also explore the benefit of this tool. And the last phase is this when we're talking about the operational. So this is also a date when by after this time it will be completely operational. And we just need to have a business as usual supporting structure in case if they get stuck day to day, and that will fall on. So that's where it will become autonomous and it will run, the whole tool will run itself. And obviously continuously providing the knowledge sharing sessions. That's where we can show them if there's any new feature coming or if there's any new way of working or standardized reporting or whichever. This something help them on the operational phase. So that's the methodology or the migration approach I took from my previous project. So that really helped me by taking some approach, migration approach to doing a phases approach. In terms of the professional development, what I also did, build a pyramid with the basic, intermediate, and advanced level. So how, depending on which level or the career progression at a skill set where they are. So if they are very entry level, then they can do the basic, suitable for project planners, implementation manager, or graduates who join the organization, ambition to become project manager in the future. They can take this project management fundamentals training. They can take web-based learning, some mentoring and coaching, and CAPM. So that's a PMI certification. Then basically moving on to intermediate, then that's where you have a PMP study groups, and then final advanced level, you got a bit more higher level training such as leadership or consulting training, and this ideally for the senior project or program managers or program directors. So that's where the professional development worked as well, and also identifying what training do we need at what certain frequency. Establishing a calendar helps so that all project team can prioritize their personal school holiday or whichever they want to, how they want to prioritize, including their work commitment as well. So that network calendar allows them to have those training, because a lot of time trainings run and due to their busy schedule, they're not able to attend. So having a calendar visibility is help them. Okay, before we move on, let's take a quick quiz. So you can type your question in the chat. Mustafa, sorry, I didn't tell you. I just thought maybe I'd give you a surprise.
Yeah.
so that I can test whether you are following as well or not.
I'm definitely following and taking notes too.
Okay, so what are the 3 types of project management offices? Is it, sorry, I didn't put ABCD, but you can assume this is ABCD. So you can just put ABCD. Yeah, so is it supporting, controlling, or directive? Is it a plan, business unit, or global? Is it a project, program, portfolio, or don't know? So I'm not seeing the screen, so I'm relying on you, Safa, and let me know what people are typing most.
I think we have an anonymous A.
Okay, so
we've got a very well educated bunch here.
Right. Okay, so we got that's correct. Okay. And what is the primary focus of project governance? So if you hear when I was talking about the governance, you'll understand, is it the team member performance, or is it quality assurance, or is it risk mitigation? Excuse me, I don't know. A, B, C, D. So mainly, let's say A, B, or C. And I'm talking about the governance, not the PMO. Okay, so what are we getting now?
We're getting C.
C.
There's not a lot of answers. I think this is tripped a few people up.
My mistake. The answer is correct. This is a risk mitigation. Okay. The risk mitigation is correct, as I mentioned when I was talking about the governance, because the purpose of governance is not to show the rosy image of your project. You know, they call it a watermelon report, means everything is green outside and red inside. No, we want to make sure that the correct image is shown in your governance, so that the stakeholder and steering group, their job is to ensure that help you to remove those risks and help you to bring everything on track. So that's the main purpose of governance. Correct. Okay, so I think this will be straightforward. What management structure standardize the project-related governance process and facilitate the sharing of resources, methodologies, tools, and techniques? Is it senior management, project management institute, or project management office? So A, B, C, D.
Yeah, we've got a lot of there's a bit of mix. Majority are saying C.
Okay, so C is the correct answer.
Good.
Right. And how are we tracking with the time, Mustafa? So far we on track?
We're running a little bit late.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. All right, I'm almost there. So first of all, just want to summarize it. Summary. So whenever we're setting a PMO, first of thing we need to continuously ask why we're doing it. It's just like a four-year-old kid asking question why and why and why. So you just need to more why you ask, more you'll understand why you need it. And this is the most important part. And without this, PMO will not work, which is ensuring the accountability for the PMO comes from the top. If you don't have your top management visibility, what PMO is doing, and if you don't have any interface or interaction with them, it will definitely fail. So that's where it's very important. Understand organization strategy. It needs to tidy up with our strategy and the need for a PMO. So that's where the selection of PMO, what type of PMO is needed, this comes in handy. That's what I just mentioned. Set expectation will also need to be clearly communicated with all the groups and telling them and getting their buy-in. So whenever any policies or decisions or KPI or performance is established, making sure that they're involved and you have a buy-in. Okay, and the performance index should be matched, and then it should have higher management support. What I'm trying to say that each group performance should tidy up with the standard process tools and adherence that we are deploying. Professional development should be the part of business as usual. What it means that you need to continuously looking after the professional development of the team, making sure that they are aware, they know what skill set is required to run their projects. And that should go continuously, not just beginning of the year or end of the year. And also just being pragmatic, seeing what's actually working, not just doing the work or creating the documents if it does not serve any purpose. Making it simple. Try to keep it simple. See if there are any complexity added in some certain tools or templates, how we can make it something simple. Make it very pragmatic so that it saves the time and give you maximum benefit. Okay, just some final words. What I want to say, a PMO shall be regarded as it's an institution. It's a go-to place where every project manager's program portfolio, they look upon to that, yes, this is a single place, there where can they go to. And it also relates with quality standard and best practices should be there. It should add value to the organization and helping to organization with the efficiency and also being a part of the strategy there so that we have a common goals and common base, common understanding, and adds the profitability, because if we are finding the efficiency in our work, in our projects, it will help to profitability in our project delivery. And of course, advocates quality in our way of working. So that's something I wanted to say. Before I move on to a bit of talking about PMI, Mustafa, or do you want me to stop here and take questions?
No, we're about to just go to Q&A session, but what I would like to do is if you can perhaps talk a little bit about PMI, but also how our students can increase their chance of landing a job
Sure.
in this field. Okay,
just quickly, 2 minutes only. So as I mentioned that I'm part of PMI Project Management Institute as well. And this is our global organization formed in 1969. That's where man landed on moon. It's a not-for-profit professional membership association. We got over 600,000 global members, about 1.4 million PMI certification held worldwide. So that's an enormous, huge number. We have a presence in 208 countries and 6 continents. And more than 6 million copies were sold. PMBOK guide. So that's our PMBOK, which is Project Management Body of Knowledge. Okay. So these are some certification that PMI formed, and there's a new one just came up. I didn't put here. Disciplined Agile, CAPM, PMP, PGMP, etc. It also provides the global standards. You have a chapters and community, training, education, what trainings and education applicable to your profession, I mean project management profession, thought leadership, research as well. So if you want to be part of the research program, PMI supports that. So this is, I've just taken the CAPM certification related. So there's some stats showing that 15.7 million new jobs will be globally by 2020 in project management profession, roughly. And now it's 2020 already. This stats I took last year. So the CAPM is the entry-level certification for students that does not require any experience with the project management hours that you need to accumulate with PMP. CAPM is straightforward. And what happens is increases students or our chance when they're looking for a job. So they're having a CAPM credential holder, definitely it adds a value to your CV, and it provides some assurance to the recruiter or hirer that you do have some basic global knowledge of project management, even though it's a theoretical, but still you do understand some quality standard related with the project management. Project Management Institute, Melbourne, Australia. It was formed in 1996. We got roughly around 1,500 members. The service that is being offered is through volunteering, mentoring. So if you are a member, everybody can enjoy this benefit and values from volunteering. You can mentoring, networking, professional development, and giving back to profession as well. So what actually the members, a lot of people who join and they ask me questions, especially student level or entry level, that how can they get the job? Because people ask, you don't have experience, how do I get the job, right? And same thing, people who come from different country, they also face the same challenge. You don't have the local experience, right? So what advice I give them? They ask you don't have a local experience, but it doesn't tell you that having volunteering experience is a work experience as well. So if you are doing a volunteering as a project manager or any initiative that you are working with PMI or any other institute, that is also considered as a local experience as well. And some of the volunteers from my mentee that I was mentoring, they got the right volunteering opportunity, and that's where they could put on the CV that they have the local experience. So yes, PMI will this membership will allow you to explore more options with the networking. You can have a mentor. You can also have a study groups. They're all free for members. So if you need some guidance, help to study for the exam, these groups are there and they're running on a weekly basis. So there's some of the advantages that you can take.
Fantastic. Well, look, fantastic session, Vik. Great insights. I was surprised to hear 50% of PMOs close within the first 3 years. I mean, wow, like who knew that? But I think for me personally, the misalignment to strategy and lack of authority really hit home. And we definitely need to focus on the why, ensuring accountability and setting expectations while ensuring higher management support. But it was also great to see a practical example of a project management system rollout. I think you can definitely say it's a well-coordinated, systemic, and team effort. But I was also pleased to see the systemic professional development model. I'd never seen anything like it before. But I am conscious of time, Vik. So I would like to now turn to Q&A. We've got about just under 10 minutes left. I want to invite Dr. Nick Hadjinikolaou to moderate the Q&A session. Nick is the Program Director for the Master of Global Project Management, or short for MGPM, but also the dual MBA and MGPM. He is a certified PMI, PMP, PGMP and Agile PM practitioner, and has completed his PhD in Project Portfolio Management in 2019. Nick has an impressive CV, I must admit. He's set up and managed PMOs with over 25 years of industry experience, including with the likes of IBM, Telstra, and the state government, and also Business SA. Without further ado, thank you for being present with us, Nick. I'd like you to now moderate the QA session, with your permission.
That's great. Thanks, Mansoor. Thanks, Vik. Fantastic presentation, and quite interesting, some of the insights. I'm just going to jump in with a couple of questions, and then I'll ask people to type in the chat, and then I'll read those questions out. I was wondering if you could give us a little bit more insight in terms of the number of people that work for Ericsson, and the number of people you've got that work for the PMO, and the number of projects that are part of the scope of your PMO, just to give us a bit of a feel for, the scope of that, your PMO.
Okay, so within Ericsson organization, we split into, I'm just talking about Australia. So we got about 1,000 employees, and out of 70% belong to radio access network. So our organization is split into two forms. One is ICT, which is mainly about information and communication and telecommunications. And then we have a radio access network. So as you know, Ericsson, most of the business comes from the radio access network. And entire Telstra network, 4G, 5G, or 3G is all fully deployed by Ericsson only. So that's where there's a huge team, and that's where they have to have a RAN, the PMO there. So within that team, we have about 4 accounts, as I mentioned, is account centric. So Optus and Vodafone are in Sydney based, so we have a presence in Sydney. About 50-50, I would say, staff is based in Sydney, and 50% would be here. And NBN and Telstra are centric here. So I would say, given any time, at least 100 projects are running in flight there, and most of them are rollout related project. I'm just talking about the RAN. I'm not talking about ICT projects. I'm just talking about the RAN component. So given any time, 100 something running there. Yeah.
So that'd be like external projects. And do you have like a change manager or business analyst that report to you, or an administrator, like in terms of your direct, reports?
Yes. So I have a business manager. So our PMO is split. How do I say? We have a business manager and we have administrative staff as well. There is a configuration manager there as well. In terms of the documentation, they show, and it's centralized based. So what happens if you create an opportunity? So we call it opportunity. What it means that when you, in pre-sales, when you have a project or program, is get a unique ID. And if you add all the information in the system, it goes to our backend office in India, and they create your configuration related folders and everything for you. So it's automated. Most of the things are automated there.
Yeah. So we've had one question from Stephen Davies. Thanks, Stephen. He'd like to know whether there've been any projects, what types of projects were stopped or slowed down during the onset of COVID-19.
That's a very good question. So what happened that within Ericsson, we actually stopped going to work way before government made the decision. So we stopped going to office. I think it was a week before the decision came. So good question. Most of the project that we do, our customers are based in Sydney or Melbourne or different locations, right? So yes, it did impact us for at least a couple of weeks. That's where we were still trying to, everybody's taken by surprise, unprecedentedly. So we just managed, but for at least a week or two, it stopped because a lot of field staff, they had to go on sites and then configure those things there. So especially where the hardware need to be deployed on site, and then the team can follow up. So that's impacted us for 3 weeks. But then after that, within 3 weeks, I would say our crisis management response team is pretty advanced and very thorough. They come up with a plan and all the guidelines and on the day-to-day job that need to work. So the staff, they had to come to work. They were coming to work, but there was a response team there to look after, making sure that the safety and hygiene point of view, everything is looked after. So the project-wise, I would say where we need to install the hardware first. So most of the projects were short time were impacted, but after that, once we had this response team guidelines followed up, it's everything back to normal now. So nothing is stopped. We'll be running the project as usual as we were doing before.
Right. Yep. And so, in terms of, were there any projects that were stopped? Were there any major projects that actually were put on hold?
Not really. I think thanks to the technology that allowed us to connect. So with the customer interface, now we still use the team with them, connect with them. Didn't really have any issue with the customer. Didn't really stop any project. There was, I would say, some delay with certain milestone because of this situation, but I would say within maximum 1 or 2 weeks we lost some target, but that's something the customer accepted. So we didn't stop any project.
Yep. Okay, that's great. On the third or fourth slide, you had some statistics about the number of PMOs in what. Is that a global? Where does that statistic come from?
Because it's a global. Yes, I put I put the source there. So there's some PMI reporting. 2017, report was conducted. So that's where they clearly mentioned the stats there. Yeah.
Yeah. So it probably in Australia it could be a bit lower. I think.
Could be lower. Yes.
Yeah. So we've got a question just around the PMO. We have often confusion, whether it's a project office or if it's a program office or a portfolio management office. And in fact, when I was working, the people that I worked for there thought that it was the Prime Minister's office that we were going to be working for. Do you think that in an organisation, what might be the resistance to create a PMO, and is it something that's needed? Like, is it something you'd recommend?
So I definitely recommend it's needed because I didn't put the stats on the amount of time that we waste in finding on the tools and techniques and the standard templates. It's a lot of administrative related time is wasted there. Having a PMO, it's what is allows them to cut down all those chains, and they can straight away understand what actually they need to do, exactly what they need to do. So they don't really struggle in wasting their time.
Yep. And with the tool that you selected, did you go out to tender, or were you able to disclose the project management tool that you?
So the tool is a global tool. So most of the Ericsson tool, I would say everything, it comes globally. So our head office is in Stockholm. So wherever the tool comes, it goes. It doesn't matter which Ericsson branch you're working. It goes every branch there. So everybody uses the same tool.
So was it a custom developed tool for Ericsson, or was it an off-the-shelf package?
I think it's by some other third party. It's called Global Kronos. There are many other organizations may have been using as well.
Right.
So that's just an example. But there are many other tools that are in-house developed by Ericsson. So these tools, we have a big R&D in Stockholm and Ireland. So they develop these tools and we deploy them here.
Yep. In terms of your PMO, do you have a measure of value or success? How do you measure the success of your PMO?
So yes, we do. So what happens with regionally, from the region point of view, we have about, as I mentioned, including India, Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, Australia, New Zealand. So there are about 12 countries, I believe. So there's a standard reporting that we need to measure. So and that also comes through this tool. So that's why this tool is important, because without having this tool, you will not be able to measure the success criteria of the measurement of any project. So if Mustafa, for example, in the senior, he's sitting in Singapore and he asked me, Vik, I want to know how many projects are actually in a closing phase. Vik, I want to know overall how many projects are behind the schedule, how many projects are showing that there's a profitability there. There was no, this is, if you don't have this tool, you will not be able to find it, but these tools allow us. So having the adherence and deployment is very critical for our organization. So that's where this global push has come up, right? So that's what I was, that's what I was pointing it out, that unless there's not the top management push, it will not work, right?
Yeah. So that gives you like a dashboard of the projects and the success of the projects. But what about, do you produce a report as a PMO, like how many people you've trained, how many projects, what sort of KPIs do you have for the PMO itself?
So for myself, particular PMO, yes, given that the adherence that this tool by every project manager, so means if project manager is using, and depending on how much they're using, for example, generating a change request from this tool, managing their risk, managing their earned value of the project, all these things, if they're not using it, that it clearly tells them this is how the adherence point of view, it calculates the KPI and tells us. So I can clearly know which project, in terms of the adherence, where they belong, where they're lacking, or they're behind, or they're on par, right? And that's one thing. Then audit as well. So whenever when they pass certain milestone, so we have a framework where we have a toll gate stages. So every toll gate, they need to produce some certain set of documents, right? So having this audit, I conduct those audit and make sure that, so by failing those audit, obviously they fail that criteria, then they need to redo it. Otherwise, it impacts their performance.
Yeah. Okay, we've probably got time for one more question. If anyone wants to type a final question. And if nobody's got any final question, I'll have one final question of my own.
Yeah, I think you just wanted one for yourself, Nick.
All right, here we go. There's one more from Aslan.
Yeah, let's get Aslan's one.
All right, okay.
He's been waiting patiently.
So his question's around project management and portfolio management in a flat organisation. So what are the unique issues? Is that there's not much help around the theory. What's been your experience around portfolio management implementation, or what are some of the issues with implementation of portfolio management?
I have not come across with the portfolio yet. Done only the program management and the project level. So I can't really answer on the portfolio. Sorry about that.
Yeah. No, that's fine. Yeah.
Just wanted to understand, what does it actually mean by flat organization?
So where there's not very many levels, probably a small organisation where you've got the CEO and managers.
Okay. Yep. All right. So in that organization, obviously, as you in the beginning that I was showing my slide pack, the very entry level, just the project level PMO. What it means that if you think that by having a small PMO just only at the project level, that will help, then you can set up that level.
Yeah. And then finally, where would most of your, as a PMO manager, where would most of your time go in a day, on an average day? What would you say, where do you spend most of your time?
I think it's every day is a new challenge, because most of the things are driven regional, as I mentioned. So for example, this particular tool that I was project management system I was talking about. So the phase that is running now, people are using it. So obviously, most of the time I get people are contacting me, they get stuck with certain process. They don't know where to look for the certain information, and they need some hand holding show them how to do it. So I need to sometimes work as a troubleshooter as well, just to guide them. This is where to look. But I rather try to teach them how to fish rather than catch the fish for them. So that's where I try to keep those FAQs or related information, then ask them to do it rather than I do for myself. Yeah.
Yeah. So the connection then between the PMO and the executive, Glenn's just asked one final question. How strong is that connection with the executive?
Yes, so that's very important, because if we didn't have, so this PMO we have annual planning day, which happened, and all the strategy that I was showing you, the mandatory points, the slide where that was built in our strategy, and that's the commitment level required from all the project team, all the program directors. They need to be in there and they need to buy in there. So that's where those were part of the strategy, and the higher management are involved in decision-making process.
Yep, excellent. Look, thank you very much. I think we're just out of time. I'll hand back to Mustafa.
Yep. Look, thank you, Nick, and thank you, Vik, for a very valuable session. I believe you've got your LinkedIn and email address up. So if those of you who had questions were not able to get your question in on time, I hope, Vik, it's okay with you for them to send a connection request.
Sure. It's on the screen, my LinkedIn, my email address.
That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. It's been an absolute privilege to hear from an industry leader like Vik, and thank you, Vik. I must admit, for highlighting the importance of continuous learning to overcome PMO challenges, even for a leader like yourself, and not to mention relationship building with key stakeholders to drive project success. It was also great to learn the PMO focus areas. It's not just about the process and the tools, but it's also about good governance and people, particularly with professional development of people. I hope you've all enjoyed tuning in and have benefited from the session as much as I have. It's been absolutely wonderful to hear from our industry guest and to get his insights into driving project success. Thank you also to our guest moderator, Dr. Nick Hadjinikolaou, for moderating the Q&A session. I hope you have also benefited from his advice on job opportunities, or increasing your success of getting a job within this field. The importance of networking. The key is to volunteer and to connect with an organisation like PMI. Get yourself out there. I don't know about you, but I got really excited to hear there's going to be 15.7 million jobs, new jobs, by 2020, like end of 2020. How exciting is that? There's a hell of a lot of opportunities out there. You just got to go and grab it, basically. So that advice was really appreciated, Vik. To all our students, staff, academics, and everyone else that's joined, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing you again.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate it. I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you. Thanks, Nick, and everyone at your organization.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
All the best.
Thanks, Vik.
Thank you.
Hi, Mustafa, are you still there? Hello.